You were saying you went to Dubai just a little bit ago.
Like about 2 months ago, I think.
Okay.
2 or 3 months ago.
Okay. And what was that like?
It was interesting. I think the main thing that was cool about it was that the city is so new because they only discovered oil like in the 60s. And so pretty much everywhere from then to now is brand spanking new.
Right.
So everything was new, everything was shiny. It was like the biggest and best of everything. So all of that just was different. You know, it was just different. Like I hadn't seen that before, really anywhere. So that was like the cool part. Because every year we do like a family trip somewhere when my son's out of college to somewhere we haven't been before. That way we can like all experience a new place for the first time. And it's just something we've been doing for the last few years and just kind of trying to continue it. So
when you go to a new place that you haven't been to explore, what do you hope to achieve? Like where are you like? Are you planning ahead of time? Or are you just there and kind of figuring out as you go?
So with our travel agent, we always give him he knows that what we like to do is just get a hotel.
Wait, you work with a travel agent?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I didn't realize they were around. I guess that they're like specialists now.
I think so. Okay. And especially I think I feel better going somewhere and actually being able to talk to somebody about a location I've never been before.
Okay.
And so one of the things I like about our agent is that he gives us like very good information. Even like a couple years ago we had gone to Mexico for the first time. And he had given us notes on when we get to the airport, there's going to be all these people trying to sell you timeshares or trying to get you to take their cab and all this. His like, go to the person with the blue shirt with flowers on it outside the airport.
Yeah,
don't stop.
Put on your blinders.
Yeah, exactly, pretty much. So that's why we love using a travel agent is just for that reason that a lot of these places they've either been to before, visited, or can give you tips. So even when we had gone to Dubai, he just told us do some research. So we had, like I had looked up on YouTube and other places information because there's a lot of like do's and don'ts in Dubai, and just like etiquette things that could get you in serious hot water.
Right.
And so
you were saying even jail just a minute ago.
Yeah, just like PDA. If you're holding hands or something and somebody complains, you can get 30 days in jail. It's not, I don't think, as much it seemed in Dubai itself, the city, because it seems like it's slightly more like look the other way. But I think the further you get out of Dubai in any of the Arab Emirates, it would be more of an issue. So yeah, because even like some of the rules were like the women have to have like shoulders covered and anything they wear has to be below the knee. But there were people in the mall that were not dressed like that. And nobody seemed to make a fuss about it.
Yeah, it's interesting how Dubai has just such a juxtaposition of all these things, right? So it can be very old school in some of those traditions, and then I don't know if you've seen this video, but there's that guy that even puts on the jetpack with the wings, and he's flying around So I mean, like that's like the ultimate daredevil, future technology. And then they've got what, the largest or biggest water park, biggest aquarium,
largest mall.
Yeah,
that's got like 1,200 stores, tallest building. And it's crazy, because like even across, they're building another man-made island because like a lot of them are man-made over there, and so even across the way of where the Burj, what is the Burj
Khalifa?
Khalifa.
Yeah. So
the Burj Khalifa is the tallest building in the world right now. But just across the way a little bit, they're building one even taller that will be done by 2020.
Is that in Abu Dhabi or is that?
No, it's still it's still
it's still
it's still in Dubai. Okay. It's just they're actually building a man-made area for that.
Gotcha.
And because they
have to build an island,
right? Because they had a whole display in the mall of how the new building, like a huge model of the new building, and they had people there where you can like buy property. Buildings on there, and stuff.
My goodness.
And so, it was definitely pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You just saw exotic cars everywhere, and
and you were obviously taking a couple photos.
Over
there.
No, that's one of the, like you were asking actually before we got off topic. One of the things I do. One of my goals is whenever we do go on vacation, is I like to make sure that I get some like photos that are kind of like not necessarily like touristy. Some of them are because we visit, of course, some of the tourist places. But then it's of kind of like the emotion of being there, you know, more than anything else.
Right.
And so there's a lot of times, even some of the photography that I've taken on vacations is some of my favorite, just because it brings back those memories of being there with the family, and, you know, all of us experiencing new location together.
Right.
And even when we were in a place like, you know, we were in Paris, we don't know French.
Right.
And it was fun because all three of us were kind of like our own little group. And so, you know, we can, you know, make fun of people together, or, or like try to figure out how to get around the city.
Internal conversations. Sure. Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
And then every now and then you'd see like, or you'd hear somebody walk by, some other American, and they'd be like, oh yeah, that French arrogance. Because it was like a lot of the, like even some of the people that knew English wouldn't speak English to me.
Oh, okay.
They would almost like make me try and like speak French, or like try and make my way through it for some reason.
Do you know any French then?
No.
Okay.
It was just more of like hand gestures and pointing and stuff like that. And but it was, you know, that's...
So I guess it sounds like then rule number one is basically once you get to the hotel, get out of the hotel. Like basically get on the streets and get moving and then kind of explore.
So, and that's why we don't like to book anything ahead of time except for like transportation and lodging. And then everything else we figure out when we're there. So we will figure out what we want to see, where we want to go to, where we want to eat, you know, so we'll figure all that out there.
Gotcha.
But the other thing we tell our travel agent is we like at least nice accommodations. So even if it turns out to be a bad experience, at least we could go somewhere back that's nice. It's not going to be like depressing or
that's a good pro tip. Don't skimp on the place, because then you have somewhere to go to. Especially if it's an experimental trip.
Sure.
Exploratory.
Exactly. I think it's going to be because next year we're going to Tokyo, so I think it's going to be a little tougher because Tokyo is super expensive.
Oh, okay.
So we're actually staying out of the city a little bit and taking like the bullet train around, because I guess we're like right near one of the gates or terminals for it. So we already got in mind a couple like places that we want to hit, but then when we're there, we figure out, okay, what do we want to do and what do we have time for? Because even when we were in Dubai, we wanted to do the desert like camel rides and stuff, but it was 127 degrees.
Right.
So we were just like, we're not going to the desert riding
127 is pretty damn hot.
So we're just like, I don't think we're going to do that this trip.
Right.
So we did other stuff that we necessarily weren't planning on, but that one was one we had hoped to do, but then it was just like we were going to have a miserable time. You know, it was going to be, because even when we were there, just walking out of the mall, and you were in the sun for like 2 minutes, and you were already like a sweaty mess. Yeah. You were just like, the water was just pouring off you.
Right.
And fortunately, since it is so modern, there's AC everywhere. So that was, you know, super awesome.
Nice.
Because otherwise you wouldn't survive.
Right. Well, I guess you can take comfort in everybody's experiencing that over there. You weren't alone. Like it's not like you're the only one sweating. So when you do take photos and things like that, going on those trips, you're probably, I'm guessing, not just taking photos of the same buildings or the same places that everybody else has. What are you looking for? Like what in your mind? What I'm guessing, like I'm speculating that part of it is like you've got something you've been wanting to do, like some technique you've been wanting to play with, and maybe another part of it is like you see something that captures your eye and you're just kind of put those two together, or is it more than that?
No, there is that. There is stuff like that, because like certain things will lend themselves to a certain technique.
Sure.
So like if there's a certain bridge, like in London, one of the bridges, or like Big Ben, where you have the river right there in front, I tend to like long exposures there because it blurs the water, and then it really highlights what you're trying to highlight in your photo.
Right.
Because, you know, usually when you look at a photo, there's got to be a reason you took it, you know, and so you're trying to let the viewer either experience the same emotion you experienced when you took that photo, or to showcase something that you found interesting. So if it's a building, you want to still highlight it in a certain way. So the one thing that I will do is I will always try and come up with I'll take up the basic shot, the touristy shot,
right.
but then I like the safety shot.
Yeah.
But then I will try and make sure I get at least a different angle or a different perspective, or a build like when we were in Notre Dame. Everybody was taking a picture of the whole building, which is great. Like I took pictures of that too. But then I wanted to like get in because it's so intricate.
Right.
I wanted to get a lot of detail shots of it.
That makes sense.
And different angles of that. So that's where it was like you're showing that thing that everybody's gone to a million times, but in a different way.
Right.
Excuse me. Which I do the same thing here in Portland, like Tanner Springs Park,
okay.
where everybody shoots there. Like every time I go there, there's like 3 or 4 photo shoots going on.
Right.
So every time I'm there and like a client insists on going, like I usually try to avoid going there or like very popular places like that. But if a client insists on it, I'll do it, no problem.
Right.
But I always try and come up with a unique angle or a perspective or something that you don't see shot there all the time. Even if it's just a lighting technique or an angle or using a wide angle lens, which technically isn't a portrait lens, but using it in a way to shoot a portrait where it just has a different look to it.
Oh, so you can use a wide angle, but you can still do a portrait with that?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're not getting the person bending?
You are a little bit, but that's where you got to control that.
Okay.
And so, like, one of the things that I'll do with the wide angle lens is when I'm doing an environmental shot.
Sure.
So, especially of a couple, like I had done a shoot with a couple like years ago, and one of my favorite techniques, the wide angle lens, is that I always, if I start them center and then move the lens up a little bit so they're near the bottom of the frame, it tends to stretch their body. So for shorter people or heavier people, it like kind of distorts them in
an attractive
in a
way
good
or flattering way.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Where if you were to do it a different way, like getting even closer, then it would distort them in the wrong way.
Right.
So
there's an element of some of your photos where the person's like, I like that photo, I don't know why. And you're like, I know why. Exactly. It's flattering.
Exactly. And that comes also with like, just with lighting and with choice of lenses that you're going to use, because you can shadow somebody's face who's maybe heavier a certain way where it's more flattering.
Okay.
And same thing, but just by using the lenses. So, there's photographers who are famous for using wide angle lenses, and they use that to their advantage. Like they might have somebody like let's say like an athlete or a boxer who's sitting down and leaning forward, and so by using that wide angle lens, his hands look bigger in the shot. So it kind of emphasizes that feature, kind of what their deal is.
Interesting.
So you use them to like. There's no right or wrong. There's like a suggested right, but then you like use what you need to for what you're envisioning in your own head.
So one of the things you mentioned was kind of capturing a specific emotion or the emotion you were feeling at the time. I noticed that a lot of your photos are a little, I don't know, they're not necessarily exciting or jumpy. They're a little more mellow, a little more, I would almost say Portland style, right? A little more like you could say evening or morning kind of feeling versus middle of the day, or I don't want to say dark because I think dark is the wrong word for it, but usually they're a little bit tinted, like a little bit less light than they could be. They're not bright colors often. What are you feeling in that moment? Like, what are those emotions, or is it just more like that's kind of your signature style? Well,
I think a lot of it has to do with the style, but then it's also, with every photographer, it's like the way you see it, the way you approach it, part of your personality comes through. And so most of the time I'm pretty laid back.
Right.
And so it's not about like the flash or anything, about, hey, look at me.
Gotcha.
It's just like an image that's in itself, will like convey something.
So you'd say like almost relaxed, low ego, kind of just like very not so much plain, but more like vulnerable. Maybe is a good word for it.
Yeah, and I think that's why we like, we travel a lot to the coast.
Gotcha.
And we like the Oregon coast because it is that moodiness and that early morning or the storminess in the evening.
Right. Yeah, it's a beach where you don't go with a swimsuit.
No, you're fully dressed.
Yeah.
No, so that's where it's like, I think part of that is that low-key style. And even like with my headshot clients and portrait clients, I usually interact with them in just like kind of a low-key way because I don't want them to be stressed out for being in the situation they're in where they're having to get headshots where it might not be their favorite thing.
Right.
And one of the biggest thing I always hear is, I never look good in photos. You know, that's, everybody tells me that.
Right.
And so then it's like that kind of puts, not so much anymore, but it used to put a lot of pressure on me because then I was like, okay, great, now I got to make this person look good. Yeah. And there's no way to make this guy look good.
Right.
You know, but usually, you know, you can, with lighting and trickery, you can usually get it to look pretty good. And I think that's where even I shoot a lot of monochrome, a lot of black and white, just because we every day see in color. And so you have certain things that in a photo will distract you or will draw your attention. And so with monochrome, it's about like the image itself and, you know, the shadow and the light and the emotion and the expression maybe on the person, the movement maybe of the person. Because for a while, I will kind of challenge myself to do a series, just kind of push myself a little bit.
Are you in a series right now?
I'm doing one right now with the 4x5 camera.
Okay.
So I shoot portraits, and I'm trying to use the 4x5 composition and framing and cropping in a way where it's a little bit different. And so that's one of the things I've been working with now. But at one point, I had one where I always wanted it was a street photography series, and it was always single people in a shot, only one person, and they had to be in some way leaving the frame. So normally when you do a shot or like something, they usually say you want the person looking into the frame or moving into the frame.
Right. It gives energy to the picture.
Yeah. So this way it created a different type of tension.
Right.
Because they were leaving, you know, they're like about to leave the frame.
Right.
And it was always just the one person, so your attention always went to that person.
Right.
There was nothing else, any distracting elements.
Right.
So that was a lot of setting up in an area where I maybe liked the architecture.
Okay.
And then from there trying to figure out, okay, now I'm going to wait here with this composition until somebody crosses my frame. And so that was a lot of waiting for that kind of stuff. But there was one like that.
Oh wait, so you weren't working with models, you were just working with people.
Yeah, no, it was just street photography.
Okay.
So it was just random strangers.
Gotcha.
So I was waiting and just to catch somebody, and that was where one of my all-time favorite shots I got in Venice, where it was on the boardwalk. It was off the boardwalk, but it was this like a bike path that made like an S in the sand, and there was some big palm trees, and I was just waiting for somebody to ride a bike coming this way,
right?
And it just I think I waited for like 20 minutes,
yeah,
and then some girl in one of those like old school with the basket and everything, like the beach cruisers, comes by there, perfect thing, and click, 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 and that was it. You know, so
nice.
Waiting 20 minutes, and I got, I think, like 3 shots.
Yeah.
And that was it, you know.
Right.
With most shoots, if I get 1 or 2 that I love, then it's a successful shoot, you know.
So cool.
But most of the time, you know, most of them are keepers.
Right.
And then there's like a certain amount that are just like amazing. And then there's like 1 or 2 that I love, hopefully. There's been shoots where there have been none I've loved, but it was a good shoot, you know.
Well, one of the hacks that I really liked that I saw you use when you did one of the outdoor shoots, actually for our proposal, was when you used that sun app and you were actually figuring out where the sun was going to come from.
Yeah.
And you were like, okay, so I'll set up right here. I thought that was real smart. You're using actually the sun as like, okay, this is going to be part of my composition, part of what I'm working with since I'm here outside.
Yeah, and that's one of the things where one of the big, I think, turning points kind of when I started shooting was learning to mix, because I think we used also a strobe at some point. We were using some lighting, I think, when we did that shot.
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
So there was that was one of the things where learning to use the sun, but then using artificial light as well, and then mixing them if you needed to. That's where it kind of opened up a whole different thing for me as far as getting me some more recognition and building up my client base. in the commercial photography area. Just because it looked a little more polished, I think. It looked more polished, but still kind of had that style of, that I usually do.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
So with, I remember at one point you were kind of promoting a headshot company.
Yes.
Were you a part of a headshot company, or
what was it the one with the app, right?
I'm not sure.
The QR code?
Oh, no, not that one. This was, I think, somebody's signature name. I think they were from New York or something.
Peter Hurley.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So were you part of that company, or what was that about?
No. So what it is Peter Hurley's a kind of a world-famous headshot photographer.
Okay.
And so I think it's 7 or 8 years now when I first met him. And it was randomly through are you familiar with F-Stoppers?
No.
It's okay. So it's like
is
a
that
blog.
A group of some? Okay.
So it's F-Stoppers online. It's like a group for like photography stuff.
Right.
They're like I think one of the biggest, if not the biggest,
okay,
on the internet. And so they had done a video for headshot photography, and then they had said in the thing, if you think you're a good headshot photographer, send this guy like 10 of your headshots.
Oh, okay.
And he'll critique them for free.
Nice.
And he was like a name photographer.
Right.
And so I was like, what's it going to hurt? Whatever.
Right.
So I sent him the thing, like 10 of my headshots. And then like a couple days later, he like calls me on the phone. And at first I was like, okay, sure, buddy. But then he's like, oh no, I got your photos, and I just kind of, whatever. So we started chatting. And at that time, he was starting a thing called PH2 Pro, which was because, one, he was very expensive, still is. And so other people who necessarily couldn't afford his rates, he can refer people out to. Or if he was not going to be in that area, because he's in New York, so I'm here on the West Coast, so if he was not going to fly over here for a headshot or, two,
right,
he can refer me to the client and say, yeah, he's one of my people that I trust, and whatever. So that had started. And so I was the first mentor, because he had like a system of like associate, proteges, mentors. So mentors meant you can critique other people's work and help out other photographers.
Nice.
So when the whole thing started, I was one of the first mentors on there. And then it became Headshot Crew. And so now I think there's like over 10,000 or more photographers worldwide that are part of it.
Right.
And last year we had Headshot Mania down in California.
Okay.
And this, I guess I just heard that there's Headshot Mania 2. And so, and I was a speaker at that thing where it goes, but yeah, so it was a whole headshot thing. And so I'm good friends with Peter. And so that's where it was like, and I was doing stuff with him. I shot a video series for him on the Headshot Intensive, because he does these workshops on headshot photography. And so he did a Headshot Intensive online. And I went to New York and was there for like 3 or 4 days shooting a video series on this Headshot Intensive.
Oh, okay.
And
so then you were shooting Peter talking about his thing. Kind of like a master class, for example. Yeah, okay.
Correct. And so for anybody that like, into headshot at all or portrait work, like the Headshot Crew is like the #1 place.
Okay.
And it's still like, I still learn stuff from other people.
Right.
There. And I actually made the thing I liked about it is because I made some really good friends with people from all over the United States because of the Headshot Crew and because of Peter.
Right.
That I still, like, to this day, it's like we'll go to an event, like even Headshot Crew, where I haven't seen some of these guys in months, and then it's like we'll pick up right where we left off last time we met.
Right.
And everything's just, casual. And it's like a big group, and it's like everybody is helping each other, And there's not very many people that are very, ego driven, kind of like big head people.
Right.
So most of the time, everybody's pretty laid back, and everybody's pretty much like, like I know I'm not curing cancer. I'm doing photography, I'm doing headshots. Yeah. It's not the end of the world if something goes wrong,
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that's why I'm a part of that, and I think that's why, since I was one of the first mentors, and I still
you get to grow with it.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Absolutely.
And so, like when I'm in New York, I visit Peter. If I had shoots, I'd shoot in the studio. He does the same thing when he's here. He's done two headshot intensives in Portland, and then he used my studio and stuff. And so it's been a really fun kind of relationship from
That's great.
From when it was actually the first time it was like Google Plus conference. I don't know if you remember that.
Okay.
It was in San Francisco. It was the only one they ever did.
Oh, interesting. Google Plus.
Yeah, it was the Google Plus photo
social
conference.
network.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like they were trying to launch this huge photo thing.
Okay.
And it was going to be an annual event.
Right.
But it only happened 1 year.
Okay.
So
what was the actual name of it? Google Plus?
Yeah, Google Plus photo conference, I think.
Photo conference. Okay.
Something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were a part of that then.
I was just there to, because Peter was going to be there.
Okay.
And he's like, hey, why don't you come out here? You know, I'm going to be speaking here. And we can hang out and whatever. Yeah. And then we had another buddy down in Dublin, California, who came up for it.
Nice.
Because he was only like an hour away or something.
Right.
So then we all hung out, and yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what would you tell someone who you are doing a headshot for about the best way, the way to look best in their headshot? You mentioned that some of it is specific to the person, right? That their hands might be closer. But those are things you're doing on your end.
Sure.
What would they be doing on their end?
Really, you know, it's kind of cliche probably, but it's like get a good night's sleep. Mm-hmm. That's like the number one thing, because I have people who come in and if, you know, and then drink plenty of water like a day or two before.
Wow.
But then during the shoot, the biggest thing I would say is like, because when I'm like coaching somebody as far as telling them what I need them to do or directing them in the shoot, I always try and distract them because people tend to get too much in their own head about like, oh, does my hair look good? Or, oh, my nose is crooked this way. I hope it doesn't come out in the photo. Right. And so you're always trying to distract them so they're not thinking about that.
Interesting.
And that they're just engaged with you.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, kind of like we're doing here, is I like to just chit-chat with them, find out things that we have in common, and then just kind of expand on those. And just like they're chatting with a friend and then taking some photos. You know, and then chatting again and taking some photos.
Right. But it's that dentist conversation too.
Yeah,
where it's one way. Like, sure, you can't respond to me.
No, to an extent, because I don't mind. Like, I'll put the camera. Like, I don't.
Oh, because I know that much of a time frame. Then.
No, okay. Like I don't stick to time frames too much.
Gotcha.
And so, you know, there's photographers that'll shoot for like 2-3 hours for stuff, for headshots. I mean, or portraits or stuff. And I get it to a certain extent, but in a way, it's like by the time an hour comes by, I'm already tired. Yeah. The person's already kind of tired.
Yeah.
You're not going to get much better, you know?
Right.
So I always kind of try and get in there early and get some of the good stuff right away. But I also like I want them to understand that it's about them. And so if I need to put down my camera and just chit-chat for a minute because I think it's going to get me to a better result, I'll totally do it. If, you know, so whatever it is that I think I need to do to like figure out this person. So like if they come in and they're like kind of shy or whatever, you know, I'll approach them like way low key, you know, so there's no rush, no nothing, no issues, you know. If it's somebody that comes in more energetic, you know, I might be a little more sarcastic with them. I might like be, you know, a little more like, all right, come on, let's do this. You know, just kind of a little more high energy. But typically I'm not very type A personality.
Right.
So usually it takes a lot to like get to that, to like after 2 or 3 shoots in a day, like that's my max. Like,
gotcha.
Because then I'll have to get like up and then get my regular self.
You're extroverted.
Like,
now you're
exactly.
introverted.
And then I have to like get back up again, and then it's like it just wears you out. And
well, that makes sense. I mean, I'm sure when you're doing those sessions, you've got to be really on.
Sure.
Because you're doing client interaction as well as light manipulation, photo manipulation, and trying to work with all these.
And then you also have to be detail oriented,
right?
Where you notice everything, like if a hair is out of place, or if something's weird on the person's face or their wardrobe, you still have to notice all that stuff too. And that's why when I first started photography, like 15 maybe years ago, all I shot was landscape because I was terrified of working with people.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, dude, landscape is just great stuff. But there was not much money in it, you know?
Right.
And there is probably if you're really good, like, you know, like maybe even like Peter Lick or something.
Yeah, especially if you're capturing wildlife or something like that.
But at the time I was just starting, so it was okay, but it was just like your basic landscape stuff.
Right.
And so once I got into portraiture, and at the time too, it was like, you know, when like anybody when they first start, they do weddings, senior pictures, anything they want. Anybody ask them? Yeah, I do newborns. So I don't care.
Exactly. You know? I do newborns. So no.
So that's where it's like you get a lot of experience really quick in different things, and then you can figure out what you're good at and what you. Because there's maybe something you find that you're not good at. Like I wasn't necessarily the best at headshots, but I enjoyed it. So then I did research and did training and went to workshops to get better at that. So fortunately now, I just shoot what I want to shoot, pretty much. And but that was just, you shoot everything and it just helps you get better. But that's where people were willing to pay more for that kind of stuff than they were for landscape.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
Then it was like, okay, I can, this could have something to it.
Yeah, you have to have a pretty specific use case to ask somebody to go photograph a hill.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that one guy who did Windows photo.
Oh, sure.
Remember the green grass with the blue sky and clouds? And I think he said you'd made like over 100,000 or some huge amount of money over the course of that being.
Sure, with licensing or
with
something.
Licensing,
okay. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Yeah, that reminds me of a famous one here in town is always that Nike logo that people talk about. I think the person made $75
yeah,
or something.
I know. I think I read that too.
Nike logo. Now, I saw recently you did some photos with, it looked like some sort of sports car resort of some kind. What was that about?
So that is the Thermal Club in Thermal, California.
Okay.
And so it's private racetrack, pretty much.
Okay. With a hotel?
Well, no, not a hotel. What it is they have a huge clubhouse, which kind of resembles a hotel. Gotcha. It's big. And then they have, so it's members only. So when you become a member, there's lots around the track that are high and overlook the track itself. Okay. So within a certain amount of time frame, I guess you have to have a house built.
Okay.
And they're like huge houses. So people that build, like the garages are huge. That'll store like 6 cars or more.
Sure.
And then they have their own facilities. So they have facilities for like a gas station there. They have like a mechanic shop and everything. Wow. So you can bring in your cars, leave them there. You can fly in and be like, hey, can you have my Lamborghini ready? Right. Because I'm going to be coming in at 6 o'clock or whatever.
So it's just a private racetrack.
Yes.
Okay.
And so you fly in. They have your car fueled up, washed.
Nice.
Mechanical looks over it. You can take it on the track, do whatever.
Right.
Then they wash it, fuel it, put it away, store it. Change your tires if you need them.
There
whatever.
You go. It only costs $15.
Yeah. So the way I got in with them is because I had done headshots for a guy who's a Hollywood stuntman.
Okay.
And he's a stunt driver, but then he also raced for some teams.
Okay.
And so they brought him on board there as their lead instructor. And
okay. So they were getting kind of private classes on their track. Okay.
Yeah. So, and lead instructor, because like people who buy these cars sometimes, and like around the facility, these high-end dealerships are putting up showrooms. So like when I was there, BMW of course was there because they all, I think, sponsor part of Thermal because they have like a bunch of BMW cars. And then there was like, I think there's like Pugani was going to have a place there, Ferrari, Lamborghini, all these places.
Right.
And a lot of these companies actually come and test there.
Okay.
Because it is like a private track, and I think it's like about 5 miles.
Sure.
When you do the whole course.
Sure.
And so when I was there, it was for a race that was going on called the Triple Crown. And that was one of the days that they were racing. And one of the editors from Wired Magazine was there, and he actually had his race license. So he was racing the Audi R8s. And so then I was getting shots of him, getting suited up in the car, the car itself.
Oh, the magazine.
For the magazine.
Okay.
And so then they did the actual race. I was shooting stuff of that. And then they just, it was used for an article in Wired.
Oh, great.
About the R8 and some of the technology that goes into it.
Interesting.
And stuff. And, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's super cool.
I didn't know you needed a race license, though. I thought on a private track especially that you could just get in a car and just book it.
No, and even like if you don't have a race license, you're limited on how fast you can actually go on the track because they let us go on the track, but we were limited on how fast.
What was the limit?
Like 60 miles an hour.
No.
Yeah. So it was like on the highway.
You can go faster than 60
no, they might.
on the highway.
Maybe there's an exception in certain times, like if they trust you as a driver.
Okay.
But maybe there is. I don't know. It's just I know we weren't allowed to go past the pace car kind of thing.
Okay.
And
that makes more sense.
But then everybody else,
a pace car there, and you just don't pass the pace car.
No, but then every time you have like the helmet, and you have to have all the stuff that go into it.
Right. I don't usually wear a helmet when I drive down the highway.
Yeah, no. And I've driven faster than that down the highway without a helmet. So yeah. No, it's good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But how did you get started in photography initially? Like, what was your like? Okay, this is the thing that I want to do.
Okay, so the thing that's just, so I didn't even pick up a camera until I was like 25. And what had happened is at the time I was working at Paychex, the payroll processing company, and I had a buddy there who we became friends. Well, because I worked there for like 2 years, and he was an amateur photographer. And so at the time it was still film. Everybody was shooting film. I think digital was just coming out, and so he was like, "Hey, I'm going to the coast this weekend. You want to tag along? We can shoot some scenic stuff and whatever." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "But I don't have a camera. I don't have any of this stuff." And so then it was like he told me what kind of camera to get. I think it was like a Canon, just some Elan 7E. Okay. So that was the first one. And
is that digital or is that analog?
No, it's analog.
Okay, yeah.
And then it's got film, but the thing I liked about it, which I think what the E stood for, was that it had eye control for focusing. So when you're looking through the viewfinder, where you looked on the kind of viewfinder area, that's where it would focus. It would calibrate with your eye.
Wow.
So then it would just, which is like, I don't know why I don't have that in digital cameras now.
Is that not? Okay, yeah, that sounds super high tech.
It was very high tech. I was like, dude, this is like future stuff. But they had that, and so I had gone out there, and we just shot a couple rolls. I had it developed because it was slide film, so I had slides that you would put in a light box and project. And ever since then, I was hooked. Like I was like, and I think it was just kind of beginner's luck where the photos were actually really good.
Oh, cool.
As far as like the color and just the scenes, I really loved.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, it's like chasing that same feeling that you had when you first saw the first set of photos.
Right.
And then you're just like, man, these are like amazing. Like I'm the best photographer ever.
Right. Nice.
And so that's where, and then that was it. That from then on, it was just kind of like going out more, learning more about it, taking some I took some classes on photojournalism, and because I like that style of shooting, which is kind of, I think, shows a little bit in my work now too, where sometimes it's more candid, or it's and I kind of like that. But yeah, that's where it all kind of started, and then
so just going out, you said to the coast, right, and then taking some photos, slides, and then when you were talking about black and white, when you do black and white, are you actually shooting with black and white film? Is that a thing?
Yes.
I don't know much about film and stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so that's not a post-processing thing. You actually shoot in black and white.
Yes.
Okay.
And then even with, like right now I shoot with Sony cameras and Leica cameras.
Okay.
And so with Leica, I shoot in monochrome. So it will record the photo so I shoot RAW and JPEG. So it'll record the JPEG in monochrome, and then the RAW in color, of course.
Oh, okay.
But so through the viewfinder, it's all black and white, unless I'm using the rangefinder part, but I also use the EVF. So if I'm looking through the EVF, it's all black and white already. And so that way it's pretty much like what I see is what I get. And but then when I'm shooting my film cameras, I use black and white film. And sometimes my wife gives me grief because she's like, well, I want to see that in color.
Right.
Like, well, it doesn't come in color.
Yeah. It's black and white film. The color is gone.
Yeah, exactly.
The color is there in the moment.
Yeah.
And the moment is not here. You mentioned some acronyms that I'm not familiar with, which made me think about like how technical you are and like how pro you are. What are some of like the things that when you're talking with people, you're like, these are like the top 3 tips or something that I would give to somebody that they probably don't know, like the things that the pros are always missing, or the things that the amateurs that think they're pros. It's like, well, you're missing these few things. Like, what are some of those top tips?
Okay, well, one thing is I think the big mistake a lot of people make is you can't buy talent. So it's like you can't expect that you're gonna see somebody's photos. Like the question you always see online a lot of times is, when you see a great photo, people ask, "Ooh, what camera or lens did you use to take that?"
Okay.
just because you have that same camera and lens does not mean you're going to get that same type of photo. And so one thing I always tell people is, because they'll ask me like, oh, should I upgrade or should I buy this lens or that camera? I'm like, learn the equipment you have front to back and then learn how to use it. Learn its limitations and sometimes advantages to some of the bigger cameras. So that's where that's one of the biggest tips I think I can give anybody is just learn your camera. Because a lot of people, they'll want to upgrade because they don't know their camera 100%, so they don't know really necessarily what it's capable of, or even how to get around certain features to do certain things with it that some of the better cameras, I guess, or the more feature-rich cameras will do.
Right.
So that would be one of the biggest things. And then I think the second thing too is not necessarily the camera, but it's like your interaction with your subject. That reads through the camera, And so no matter what lens or camera you're using, if there's no rapport there, and if there's no comfort level, to a certain level at least, that's going to come through. And so you're just trying to avoid that at all costs and make sure that there's something there. Because I don't like wasting my time, just snapping photos and there's nothing there, and the person has dead eyes and there's no expression. Then I'm just wasting my time.
Interesting. So you feel like that energy really translates through the camera.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because I wouldn't think that would be such an evident part of it, but it sounds like that's something you've run into quite a bit.
It's huge because
so much so that you're saying that's a pro tip. That's something that you would like.
100%.
And you talked about that even with the drinking water ahead of time. Getting good rest. Like that you got to come and bring your A game.
No, well, that's the thing is that even though the camera can do all this stuff for you, it can't. It still is only just a box recording what you put in front of it. And so what'll happen is if you're working with somebody, like I shoot tethered when I'm doing headshots or portrait work, so that I can even show my client, just like go back and forth, toggle between here's a good shot, here's a bad shot. And I explain to them why a certain shot is better. Because a lot of times they come in and they're not versed in what makes a good shot necessarily. Or with actors, like what their agents are looking for. Because what they might like is totally not what their agent's going to like.
Oh, okay.
Because their agent might want to promote them a certain way, where they might be like, oh, I like this because I'm really goofy. But the agent might be like, I don't want you looking goofy because we need you like this kind of roles is what would fit you really well.
Right. So you're having those conversations with the agents then?
No, just
just from what they've been telling.
But what I've been telling, getting feedback.
Okay.
Because one of the things I'm also kind of big on is the like networking, and not just through like social media and stuff, but like face to face. And so every so often I'll go into agencies and just kind of like just touch base with them. Maybe bring them some donuts or something, and just be like, oh hey, it's been a while. I just wanted to stop in, see if you guys have any advice or critique on some of the photos that have been coming through from your clients.
So these are some of the places you shoot with
already.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so that way I can get feedback from them. But then at the same time, you as a photographer, you have your own likes and dislikes. Right. So I tell people all the time, if you want a certain look where it's like outside in the park with flowers and everywhere kind of headshot, that's not the type of headshots I do. So you're going to have to go to somebody else.
Oh, you make it to that level of you might want to find somebody else.
Because I'm not going to like try and shoot something I'm not comfortable with or good at just because that's the look they want.
Interesting.
I'm just like, go to who's going to do that. Don't like necessarily come to me.
Yeah. That's something that's pretty classic with agencies, with photographers, with people who write. It's kind of like, check out some of the stuff I have done. Put your expectations somewhere in that camp because I'm not going to reinvent the wheel just for this project.
Sure. No, exactly. And that's the thing is, that wasn't always the case. And I mean, it's taken me, 13, 14 years to get here to this point where I can pick and choose the clients I want. I can pick and choose who I want to shoot with, how I want to shoot. I'm only shooting really what I want unless I'm forced to shoot stuff like I have one more brother who's unmarried, and so my mom's like, "You're going to shoot his wedding." You
have to shoot his
wedding.
And
I'm just like, I don't shoot weddings, but in that case, it's kind of like I have to.
Right.
Or like, you know, my brothers or sisters will be like, "Hey, we're coming to town for Thanksgiving. Yeah. Be ready to shoot some family pictures.
Some family photos.
We're going to need for our Christmas cards."
Isn't that the worst, though? Like, I used to try being a photographer a little bit back in the day, and I always realized, like, the moment you have a camera, you're not in any of the photos. Or the moment you have a camera, it doesn't matter what's happening, you're working.
I know.
And it's like, you know, and you also don't want to just hand it off to everyone.
Yeah.
Because it's probably not going to be a good photo.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, they might break your camera in the process.
No, and see, so that brings up two good points. One is, so we have a son, he's 20 years old. So I was talking to my wife a little bit ago, and we're like, when he gets married, I will bring a camera and shoot, and like at the wedding,
right? But
I would not shoot the wedding, just because I want to be there and enjoy it.
Absolutely.
You know, and there's been weddings even for family, like some of my brothers and sisters,
right?
Where I was like, I would have loved to just be there as a guest,
right?
Instead of be there to work,
right?
Because then, like, my wife's kind of sitting by herself, you know, so I'm always running around and stuff.
Yeah.
So it just makes it really tough.
And there's no in between moments either, because you're moving to the location and you're preparing, you're shoving people out of the way,
exactly.
Whatever it might be.
Exactly. So there was that, and then the thing about the camera is, so like, I will bring like my film cameras with me when we travel, or something like my Leica, which is a rangefinder. So it's manual focus. It's all manual. So I have a hard time letting somebody use that. One, because it's kind of spendy, and then two, it's if you're not familiar with that and you're just like point and shoot guy or like iPhone shooter, it's going to be a little tricky to try and get that just right. So I try and focus it and get everything right where I'm standing, and just be like, okay, stand right here, just push this one button. But even then, it still doesn't always come out the way I want it.
It's very manual at that point. Yeah, because you got it highly configured.
Yeah. So
you did bring a toy. What is this guy?
This is the Leica M10. It's the one I carry with me everywhere.
Okay.
And so it's a digital. I have the film version. Also, it's an MP, the film version. So it's almost like the same, and it's just very well built and solid camera, and I love monochromes out of it. That's why it's one of my favorites to shoot.
Can I check this
out?
Oh
yeah, and it's all brass.
It's pretty heavy.
It's stout
for a camera.
It's very stout.
Interesting. So what do you? This is then a digital, or this is analog?
This is the digital.
Okay, this is the digital.
Yeah.
What do you like about this?
The simplicity of it.
Yeah.
And it kind of forces you to get back to the basics. And then the other thing I like is that all the controls that I mainly use, ISO, shutter speed, and aperture in the front, they're all on top here. So I never even have to go into a menu to change anything. It's all just knobs up top.
Okay.
It just makes it easier. Makes it quicker. I don't need you don't need a lot of the menu stuff. For certain things, sure, they're great. And you need to go in to tweak certain things that you might want.
But those are more one-time
settings. They're they're not everyday use settings. So once I have it set up, then I just use like that. So I know that I just turn it on and I can start shooting.
Now,
in most situations.
If I remember right, higher ISO is going to give you a little more noise in the photo.
Yes.
Lower ISO is going to reduce that noise, cleaner. So one of the ISO goals is to always have it as low ISO as possible. Is that accurate to say, or is there a certain ISO range that's okay to be in?
Yeah, no, to an extent. Like, I don't think there's, as long as it's not distracting, or like I'll even shoot inside. Especially monochrome is great for even like heavy ISO or heavy grain, or so I'll even shoot that at like 3200.
Okay.
And you can buy film in that speed as well. That'll be ISO 3200. And the grain, I think, to an extent, will add to it, because especially on film, it's a little more pleasing, and it's not so pixelated like it would be in a digital image.
Right.
So the grain structure is just more organic, and it just has a better feel to it.
Right, so it doesn't feel like digital noise. It just feels a little bit like
just like noise,
characteristic.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And so what's funny to me too is that there's, everything's like sharper and better optics, better sensors, better whatever,
higher resolution.
And then, but then when people post them, they dumb them down by adding filters to them, or tweaking them, or adding grain.
Right.
Where so. I get that, and I think it's part of the. There's just something about a non-perfect image that has a better attraction. I think, like even when I'm shooting like Polaroid stuff, sometimes it's unexpected what you're going to get, especially with the older film, or even expired film in the cameras that I use.
Yeah, I heard that that's kind of one of the things is using expired film gives you those unpredictable results.
Yep, and I have like a drawer full of expired film.
Okay.
Just when I'm shooting, and so you roughly know what you're going to get, but it's still like the older the film, it'll have color shifts. Some of them, like there was one that at some point when it was frozen and unfrozen, it got water droplets in it. So then when it was processed, it had these like water streaks in it, which certain of them totally like ruined the image. Right. But other ones, it was like, dude, this makes the image.
Wow.
So you never know with expired film.
Yeah, and then you're doing hashtag no filter.
Yeah.
Like really no filter.
Yeah,
just
really
expired film.
Exactly.
And so you started then a company to do your photography, and that's the Sector 9.
Sector 5.
Sector 5.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's right.
You said that had Romanian roots as far as the naming went?
Yeah,
or something,
so I was born in Romania, came here when I was 6 years old, and the city of Bucharest is divided into sectors. So during the time, it was still during the Cold War.
Were you from Bucharest?
Yes.
Okay.
So so I was born in Sector 5 of the city.
There it is.
So that's where the Sector 5 Productions, the business name, came from.
Sure.
And it was still communist and still during the Cold War thing. So that's where the whole gas mask with the lens diaphragm in the middle kind of came about, was to give it that Cold War feel. So at the time...
Okay, so it's a little Cold War, and then the lens is a shutter then?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And so that's where, by having that, I had done like some old school propaganda looking posters, but with the logo on it.
Sure.
So it kind of like fit that whole thing. I still have some around the house somewhere. But that was kind of the feel. And then at the time, I was also... Because, I did under Levy Moroshan photography for like a bunch of years.
Right.
Until I got more serious about it, and then it became a business.
Yeah.
And so at that point, too, I was working for a lot of video game companies. And so the logo and everything kind of fit with everything I was doing.
Right.
And so I was like, and it became fairly recognizable. Like people know.
Let me work with the gas mask guy.
Yeah. So they'll know the logo.
Right.
And so, I try and brand it the same on social media and stuff so that it's kind of recognizable when somebody goes to it. And that's what I kind of wanted, is having something where it had the kind of iconic look to it and kind of simple, so that it would be easily recognizable, over time especially.
So as an entrepreneur, what are some of the things that you've done in business building, right? You said you were kind of Levy Moroshan, and then you switched it over into Sector 5.
Yeah.
Was that a different business structure? What about like accounting kind of stuff? Do you work with a lot of different people, or are you kind of like the one-man shop and you're doing all of it? Or?
No, like I have like, a CPA that does certain things. When I have commercial retouching, I have a guy, Damien in New York, who does retouching for me. I try and do my own portrait retouching because I want the feel that I want for that person. But then that transition happened because, one, I was making better money, so I needed to be smarter about it.
Right.
And then I also needed to be able to start taking deductions for expenses that I was spending, because it was, it's an expensive hobby, and then it's an expensive occupation.
Yeah, you got a lot of gear.
Yeah, and especially because, to an extent, you're trying to kind of, new things come out all the time, and I'm not a big believer in upgrading my gear all the time, so I'll wait until there's like something, either I need it for work. Like when I switched to Sony from Canon, it was because Sony was the camera that had a complete silent shutter. And so when I work on set, you have a blimp around your camera, if you have a regular camera, to muffle the noise or to silence it when you're on set.
Oh, wow.
With Sony, you can turn all that off because it's mirrorless,
right? So
there's no shutter. It's got an electronic shutter.
Right.
And so there's no noise at all. So I don't have to wear a blimp around it anymore.
Wow.
So it's way more comfortable.
Is that like a kind of a furry...
It's just a big... It's actually a big box.
Okay.
That's padded all the inside.
Okay.
And you have a different lens mount depending on the type of lens you're using.
Okay.
But like all the buttons then have like extensions through the case. Gosh. So it's specific to the camera model.
Is that for BTS or is that just...
No, it's for BTS.
Right.
So it's strictly for set photography. And... It's just cumbersome, and it's huge, and
I can imagine.
Hated it. Yeah, I hated it.
I mean, anything that you're working not with the actual equipment, that's going to be unique and different. And
exactly. And so then when Sony had come about, I was like, yeah, this is it. So
interesting.
That's why. So I switched to Sony almost out of necessity.
Right.
And so the other thing is, I will skip generations of cameras unless a feature comes out that I know will like change my workflow or change something in the way I shoot for the better. Then I will upgrade. Most of the time, I never upgrade lenses because I like them. I learn their characteristics,
and then
I stick with
analog,
them.
So they're not going
exactly. And then, but yeah, so.
And so your entrepreneurial ventures aren't just strictly in photography. Then you also went into construction.
Well, I used to do construction. My dad owned a construction company.
Okay.
I used to do that like a lot of my years.
And what did your dad build? Or what did he work on?
Everything, residential, commercial.
Okay.
We did a lot of log homes.
No, is that here or in Romania?
Here.
Okay.
Here and in, so we did Oregon, Washington. And, for the last few years he was in business, it was a lot of commercial work and a lot of log homes and timber frame type of construction. And so a few years ago, my brother was working, he was a tech at a pharmacy, and his pharmacist had asked him if he knows a contractor. And he's like, well, my brother used to do contracting and this or that. So he had contacted me, and he became one of my construction investors because he was like, I just need somebody to manage jobs and do some stuff and build some houses. So we started just, building a few a year. And so then that led to some like getting contact with some maintenance work and stuff. So a lot of times in between some, bigger gigs or stuff like being a BTS photographer like Disney and ABC and some of the other studios, I'll have gaps in my schedule. Right. And so it's easy to fill in those gaps. And then if I'm working on a bigger project, I can always just give a note to some of my clients and just be like, hey, I'm out for like a month or whatever.
Right.
Don't send me any new work.
Right.
And then any of the home construction, which is a lot of what we do, is I can kind of run that from wherever, with phone and computer technology is the way it is. I have guys FaceTiming me and being like, hey, what do you want us to do here?
Yeah.
It's easy to figure it out.
So if you don't mind me asking, how many houses are you building a year right now?
Right now, between 2 and 3.
Okay.
So in the last couple of years, we've done 7, and we have 2 currently under construction. One that I close on Tuesday.
Oh, that's exciting.
And so yeah, it'll be done. It'll be nice to be done with that project. And then, so
that's wild. So what are these, like larger homes or kind of smaller homes?
They're like, I would consider them like starter homes.
Okay.
Because they're like around 2,000 square feet. And medium finishes. So nothing super high end, but also nothing like low end or entry level.
Right.
It's kind of medium. And then, but they're priced where in the market the way it is now, it's an easy point to qualify for.
Oh, nice.
So that's where...
Yeah, that's going to open you up to the largest customer base.
Well, yeah, like we're in the 3 to 350 range.
Right.
So that's like fairly straightforward for most first-time buyers.
Right.
To qualify for something like that.
Yeah. And then are those pretty close into Portland or those little...
No, these ones are... Because, one, I refuse to work in Multnomah County.
Oh, okay.
So I actually do not... as far as new construction.
Right.
I'll do other jobs in there, but I don't do new construction in Multnomah County. Right. Because dealing with the city is a nightmare. Dealing with the permitting process is a nightmare.
Right.
So I work out of Multnomah County. So I like Clackamas County, and then these are in Yamhill County. Okay. So they're out in Dayton area. Okay. So we build out there.
What kind of a drive is that to Portland?
About 45 minutes.
Okay.
So 45 minutes from me in Milwaukee. It's a solid hour every day.
Oh my goodness.
So whenever I have to go out there.
Right.
But it's about a 45-minute drive to get into Portland from there.
Okay.
But, it's that whole area is growing, especially with the wineries in that area. And now they opened a new bypass there that gets you around Dundee, which was the big bottleneck.
Oh, okay. Okay, is that a new road then?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a new, I think, 4-mile highway.
Nice.
So.
And then you mentioned it was, I think you mentioned you were into photography, construction, and then there was something else, but I'm forgetting
coffee.
It now. Coffee, that's right. That's unbelievable. You do coffee. I love coffee.
So do we. Yeah. So again, there was a thing I had seen. My wife and I had seen this thing. If you're familiar with Mike Rowe.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so he had done this speech.
Yeah.
About following opportunity, not necessarily your passion.
Are you talking about a video?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's like, follow opportunity.
I love those.
Not necessarily your passion.
Absolutely.
Because then your opportunity could become your passion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
the next door millionaire.
Yeah, exactly. So at the time we were like thinking, because my wife's an RN, and we're like thinking, well, what could we do where it's like pretty much everything like I do is a service business.
Yeah.
So with photography, when somebody hires me, they expect me to show up.
Yeah.
With construction, kind of, especially new house.
Yeah.
But if it's like other stuff, I can have employees go show up.
Right.
But with a product like coffee, you're going to grow the business as big as you want, and you're just selling a product.
Right.
So it's just that it's actually the business is the person, not the person.
Right. Right.
So that's what we had tried to come up with. And I had a friend who was telling me, coffee beans are the second largest traded commodity after oil. And I was like, really? So I like look it up, and sure enough, that's the case.
Right.
And
you mean globally?
Globally.
Okay.
So we're like, okay, this might be kind of fun. So we ordered through Dietrich, which is a coffee roasting machine manufacturer.
Right.
We ordered a custom machine that they built. Like when you order it, then they start the building process.
Holy cow.
So they build it for you custom, however you want.
So this is a roasting machine?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so took like a few months, I think 2 or 3 months. They build the machine, they ship it to us.
Right.
So then I had gone actually to their facility to train for a week.
On
how to roast.
Okay.
And then there's so much into it. That was the biggest.
So do you roast out of your house or something?
No, we have a shop that we built out.
Okay.
And we have the machine there and the beans and everything.
Okay.
And so.
And then are you staffing that, or is it just something where you go?
No,
and do
I do all the roasting.
Okay.
Like I do all the roasting whenever we get orders.
Right.
Or for like regulars or stuff, we just roast it.
Okay.
And so we started it. It's been good. I think the thing is one of the like drawbacks of having multiple irons in the fire is that you can't always focus on all of them equally.
Sure.
And so because the other stuff is a lot more profitable, it's hard to focus on that.
Right.
And you need somebody to man, especially the social media aspect of it,
right,
to like get the name out there. And so we have people that know about it and get orders from them because they know about it.
Mm-hmm.
But just like the getting the name out there, we don't put as much emphasis as we did the first year because we're dedicating a lot more time to this, when just a little more time here would increase these even more.
Right.
So then it's kind of like, so then our son...
Oh yeah, you got this mutually exclusive equation.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put your time?
Yeah, so then our son, who he's in college for business, we talked to him about just taking over part of the business. I still do the roasting, but he can handle everything else. And so that's what we kind of are doing now, where he handles what he wants, but then I still do the roasting just because...
Right.
Like,
well, you
I kind of know
the week and trained.
Yeah, and I know like the taste I like and what people order. Like I can tailor. Like if somebody orders 4 pounds or more, I will tailor it to what they want.
Oh, okay.
So if that person says, I like this roast, but I want it really dark, then I will roast the whole batch just for them, however they want it. Or if somebody's like, I want it really light, or I want this way and that way, then that's what we'll do.
Interesting.
But I don't, or if they're like, I want a little more acidity in it to have a little more pop, I'll roast it that way. Or if they're like, I just want it super smooth, then I'll roast it that way.
Okay, so you feel like do you feel like you have a good grip as far as knowing what actions you take to what flavor profile you're going to get?
Yeah, and then because the machine we got also has a thermocouple package with it, it allows me to connect to my laptop, and it graphs the roast as it's roasting. So then if I like the roast when I taste it,
you've got the exact
I got that, I can save it.
And you can just replay.
Well, I can't replay, but what it does like the onion skin thing, where it has it in the background.
Okay.
So then when I roast
and
again,
while you're going, you can
I just adjust to follow that same line.
Yeah, so you got kind of a ghost, and you just track with the ghost. Okay.
So then at the end, it tastes the same. So like if it's like a bigger coffee shop or something that we provide for, then, and they like a certain bean with a certain flavor profile, then I save it under their thing, and then I just roast it the same every time.
That's incredible because that really changes things up as far as knowing that when you're working with a company that it's not subjective. Like I would have no idea that it could be that objective on the roasting side of things. Because I guess it's just because the equipment looks older, right? Yeah. It's meant to look like traditional roasting equipment. It's dealing with heavy-duty quantities. Oh, yeah. I mean, even, if you look at any brewery, even the newest brewing equipment looks super old. It's just a massive funnel and some pipes.
But even like the roasting machines, like if you take care of it and maintain it, it'll last forever. Like even though on mine I have a clock of how many hours, that's just for me to know, like maintenance-wise, like an odometer. Right. When I got to do maintenance on certain parts of it. Right. But that thing will last forever. Like the drum is just solid metal. Yeah. It's like it is just a solid machine. They're built that way. And there's people that swear that the older machines have a better flavor. Sure. They taste better.
That's a good thing.
Just like the grill you never cleaned, kind of thing. Right. It's just the same thing. And
that's cool.
So, yeah.
I'd love to get into roasting coffee or learning more about that. That's very interesting. I'm a huge coffee fan. I actually got involved with a Kickstarter. Okay. I don't know if you've heard about this one, but it's a company called Bonaverde. They're out of Germany. Okay. And they created a machine where you push the button and you put green beans in the top. Yeah. And it roasts it, grinds it, and brews it.
Really?
In about 10, 20 minutes. I haven't heard of that. You just push the button and it does the whole thing. That's pretty cool. And what's cool is it comes from the farmers. Yeah. You actually scan the code and it will adjust the roasting profile for it, roast it, and put it through.
That's cool.
It's amazing. I've actually got it over there. I'll show it to you afterwards. But it's pretty wild. And it actually worked out pretty good. So they were innovative in that the packet that comes when you rip off the top, it has the chip in it that you scan to adjust the roasting profile. Nice. You pour the green beans in the top. Nice. And you slide that channel back in. Then you pull out the filter, and the thing that you just was holding the beans is now the filter. You put that in there, close that up. Okay, that's cool. And then you can actually even use Messenger, Facebook Messenger. They've got a Messenger bot. Okay. And you can configure that bot to talk to your machine. Really? And then you don't have to pay for the machine to talk to the internet. It just talks to the internet through a cellular channel it has. Wow. And you can just type into Messenger brew. Yeah. And it will do the whole thing. Wow. Yeah. So it's like super high technology. And
that's crazy.
It's pretty funny because a lot of people don't know about them. Yeah. But they're really doing something pretty interesting. Yeah. Because you can also put in roasted beans at this level. Yeah. And you can just do the grind brew. Sure. Or you can put in ground beans here and just get the brew. Yeah. So you can kind of like use it for whatever you want.
See, and there's people like that'll say, so that's the thing is like certain parts come down to also to taste and preference. Right. But then there's people that will say that once you roast a bean, you actually have to let it sit for like 2 or 3 days. Before you actually grind it. Okay. So there's people like I sometimes do it like right away, just like that. Right. Like I'll roast it, take them home that night, and brew it up. Right. But there's some people that say it's got to sit at least 1 day or 2 days or 3 days for certain
the gases
things to start still happen within the bean. Okay. Okay. But yeah, and then there's also techniques. Like I've seen a lot of really cool techniques of like different ways of brewing it, where people will put it in like one of those chemics and fill it with ice to a certain level, and then have a dripper that brews the hot coffee, but then it drips directly onto the ice, so it instantly cools it, and then again it changes the flavor, it gives it a smoother taste.
Interesting.
So there's all these different methods based on taste, based on just how you like it.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to make coffee, and I think one of the things that I liked when I talked to somebody at a coffee shop that I used to go to. There was somebody in there that was calibrating their machines. So I was asking that person, how do you find your flavor? How do you find the thing that you like? I really liked what he said because he talked about something really simple. Just find something that you like. Yeah. And kind of use that as your baseline. Sure. And then everything is about comparing to your baseline. And then once you find something better, you can say that's your new baseline. Totally. But I thought comparative, that was like the thing that was missing in my mind is the fact you can't just do one or another. You really have to have those two at the same time
You do.
Because you're not going to be able to tell the difference because, I mean, I'm sure you've heard all the stuff about, the way wine people will drink wine. And I don't know if you heard about the test where they completely faked them out and they literally did white wine in 2 glasses, but they put food coloring in one of them. Okay. And none of these top professionals that were the wine tasters even knew that one was white or that they were both the exact same wine. Yeah. So it's one of those kind of things where it's like it's completely subjective.
It is.
Unless you're doing like some comparison because then you can actually say there's these characteristics that are.
Well, that's also why. So when we get a new bag or a new bean that I haven't had before, or even just a new season, a new harvest, what I'll do is I'll do a roast because you can change the flavor just by your temperature, how fast or how slow you heat it up, cool it down, the airflow over the bean, what percentage at what times, a lot of different variables. And so one of the things that we'll do is the first batch at like maybe usually around like 9 minutes when it starts to pop the first time, the first crack, then I'll start taking beans out every like 30 seconds and putting them in cups for about 2-3 minutes. And so then I grind all of those the same way, the same weight, the same water, pour over all of them, and then I do cuppings. So then I can cup each one of those.
Right.
And each one will have a different taste.
Right.
And so then I mark different like flavor profiles of like what's more acidic, what's less acidic, what's smoother, what maybe something's a little more woodsy, kind of tasting. So then I'm like, out of these that I just pulled, for this bean, which one do I like the most? And so then I keep track of all that. So then I know this is my favorite. So I know from when I roast this way, I drop this bean, at 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 30, 10:30.
Yeah.
I drop the beans and cool them down, and that's the flavor I like.
Wow.
But then when somebody asks me, hey, I want something a little smoother, then I can go back to my notes and be like, okay, this one at this time was a little bit smoother.
Right.
So then I would roast to that and then drop it at that time. So yeah, so there's a lot that goes kind of into it, but you're right. You have to have something to compare it to.
Right.
Because if you're just tasting it, then you're just like, yeah, that's good.
It sounds like you've got a pretty sophisticated palate yourself if you're making those distinctions, those adjustments.
Well, I think it just comes with learning to like consciously look for that and to be able to identify the different, like if something's bitter, if it's acidic, if, being able to identify those. That's why you have to like slurp it a certain way, just like they do wine.
Sure, so you slurp it a bit more.
Yeah, and then you spit it out. Yeah, and then you get that aftertaste. So then you can also mark, bad aftertaste, good aftertaste. It doesn't linger very much, or it does.
Right.
And so there's all these different characteristics that.
And then what's the name of this company then?
Which one?
The coffee.
Industrial Coffee Company.
Industrial.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that a website?
Oh,
you got the shirt? There it is. Industrial
Coffee Company.
Oh, that's a cool logo.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
It's a coffee bean. Yeah. My graphic designer who did this logo did this one.
Oh, perfect.
So she did, like, I wanted something that sounded like just generic, like Acme, coffee. Right. So I went with Industrial Coffee Company.
It's good.
But I wanted it to be a little kind of like softer in a way.
Yeah. It makes me feel a little bit like very natural. Yeah. Like, it reminds me of almost like a Hawaiian shirt in a way. Yeah. Like I could see that.
Yeah, exactly.
Very tropical.
Totally.
Which is good because that's where coffee is usually drawing us in.
Well, and that was one of the reasons, like when we had done our Mexico trip, we actually visited a coffee plantation.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So it was like, it was great. Like we loved it. Yeah. Just the whole thing. So, yeah.
That's pretty wild. You got the T-shirt of one company, the hat of another company. Maybe the watches of the construction company.
It's a different company. Each one's got its own thing. Well, I'm like, why am I going to promote some other brand like Nike or whatever? I'll just promote my own.
Right. That's great.
I can get it cheaper too. I can order them in bulk.
Exactly. Nice. That's so wild. Well, it's been amazing having you on the show, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no, it's fun.
Just going through all the photography, construction, coffee. I mean, you are like a man of many talents. So
I think more of many interests.
Yeah.
Which is why even like the first bunch of years, it was like just different jobs. Like every couple of years, I would switch jobs. Just got to get bored with one.
Right.
And that's why I think like my dad was an entrepreneur, And so I think that's why half my brothers and sisters are entrepreneurs. Right. And then, I just kind of caught the bug.